I get a show of hands of people who've heard of CAW? Good, that's the right answer. It was a trick question because Sue from our office spoke earlier today, so just check if you're paying attention. So you've all heard of CAW. I'm the organization's registered lobbyist, which means I work on a bunch of different issues. Sue covered this, but we're basically a 38-year-old environmental organization focused on recycling policy. That's some of our staff and board members up top. You'll see for our board members a lot of familiar faces because it's the folks you're all used to in NCRA, NCRA, and other organizations. Sue also covered the bag issue, so I won't go into it. But the reason I still have the slide up here is a lot of people think of last year as really being the year of the plastic bag. It was the culmination of a 10-year legislative effort, including I think 4 or 5 different legislative authors, a lot of local outreach. But I really think of last year legislatively as the year of organics. It was a little lower profile in terms of the press, but arguably a bigger impact, or maybe I'm just biased because that's where I worked on. But we had 2 major bills and a budget action last year on organic waste. One that I think a lot of people around the room are very happy with. Last year, AB 1594 by Assemblymember Doss Williams got rid of diversion credit for green waste that's used as landfill cover. This is something something that's been hinted at earlier, but it's this ridiculous practice of telling people to separate their green waste, put it in a separate bin, and then take it to a landfill and put it in the exact same hole in the ground as the rest of their garbage. And you would think, well, you know, maybe they're offsetting some of their soil they were using. But you look at some landfills and they're using upwards of 60% of what goes in the hole is quote-unquote cover. So it was a very egregious mistake that we've been trying to fix for 18 years. And we were glad to see that dealt with. The other major piece of legislation is West Chesbro's AB 1826, which requires commercial generators to recycle their organic waste. It was also a multi-year effort, and really the idea was to add on to the 341 requirements for businesses to separate their recyclables. Well, now you also have to separate your organics as well. Sort of a sense of the timeline for implementation, and it starts April of next year with really large generators, so people have 8 cubic yards of organic waste, or a 4 cubic yard bin of organic waste picked up a couple times a week, or however you want to look at it. The idea would be large grocery stores, food processors, those kinds of generators. And then a few months later, so not a full year, just 6 months later, a little more than 6 months, we bring in the smaller stores and the produce markets and those kinds of generators. So it's people who generate 4 cubic yards or more of organic waste. The program doesn't fully kick in until January 2019, where we switch from a measurement of organic waste generation to a measurement of solid waste generation. We bring in everybody who's under AB 341. So anybody who has 4 cubic yards of solid waste will have to have an organics bin. Now you've heard about all the great stuff happening here, whether it's the Stop Waste Mandatory Ordinance, San Francisco's program, Oakland's program. You might be thinking, why the hell are you waiting until January 2019 to require all businesses to have this? And while some local governments in the Bay Area are definitely equipped to move faster than that, we don't have this infrastructure in Southern California, and you can put all your organics you want on the curb, but no one will pick it up, and if they do, they won't know where to take it. And so in the tug and pull of drafting legislation, we had a lot of opposition from LA County, Orange County, and the different jurisdictions down there. And this is basically the timeline we could get to. We still think it's very ambitious for the parts of the state that are still terrified at the prospect of having to separate their organics and actually have them go somewhere. And then the bottom category is after January 2020, CalRecycle has the authority to reduce the cutoff for anybody who has 2 cubic yards of solid waste. So the distinction being we go from the taqueria to the taco stand after 2020. The other big action that didn't really get that much attention, but was definitely a big deal for organics, was funding from the state's cap and trade program. We were able to get $25 million in grant funding. It was actually a split of grant and loan funding. I won't go into too much detail other than to say there was $15 million in grants for organics facilities, another $5 million in a revolving loan fund, and then $5 million for recycled content manufacturing. And so as a result of that, CalRecycle has already awarded the organics grants and the recycled manufacturing grants. They have not awarded the loan fund yet, but we're going to have 5 new organics facilities coming online and 3 new manufacturing facilities or expanding manufacturing facilities. We're hoping this money will be available moving forward. In the governor's current budget, they're proposing to keep this at the same level. We would be happy with that, where we'd love to see the program expanded to $30, $35, $40 million in next year. And then down the line, we'd like to move away from a grant program and more towards an incentive payment approach. Okay, so that was my quick overview of last year, and the reason why it was so quick is because there's a lot of stuff happening this year. There are a million different bills out there, and it really covers the spectrum of good, bad, and the ugly. And for the most part, I'll stick to CAW-sponsored bills just because of limitations on time, but I did promise Deborah Calhoun I'd mention AB 901 Gordon. Deborah, can you stand up for 1 second? So this is a bill that Stop Waste is working on to require landfills to provide information on disposal to jurisdictions when they ask. So if someone's trying to skirt a local disposal fee by taking something outside of a jurisdiction, that jurisdiction can call up the landfill and say, report how much came from us and who brought it to you, and they'll have to provide that. See Deborah for more information on that. So in the spirit of David Tam's comments on, or the quote from David Tam on cheap disposal being the biggest barrier to recycling, we have a bill to raise the landfill tip fee. The specifics aren't quite there yet, so I'm not going to go into them. But we have a few different issues. One is CalRecycle's budget. If you look at CalRecycle's budget adjusted for inflation, you can see the combination of the fact that we haven't raised their funding since 1995, and that disposal has gone down and will hopefully be cut in half again, is really hampering what they have to do, and yet we keep giving them more and more projects that they're in charge of. So CalRecycle funding is definitely a portion of this, but really we'd like to see the tip fee go up to disincentivize landfilling and to raise some revenue to help offset the cost of composting infrastructure that we need, including all the different regulatory requirements that composting facilities will have to endure. The specifics, again, aren't quite there, but keep an eye on AB 1063 by Dos Williams. We're also sponsoring Richard Bloom's microbead ban. Who's familiar with microbeads? Okay, so I won't go into it, but you can all trust me that it's pretty disgusting when your toothpaste has little particles of plastic in it. And so we will be phasing that out of all personal care products. We were not the sponsor. We were not the sponsor last year, but we are taking on sponsorship of that bill this year. We're also spending a lot of time on recycling market development, and really with a focus on creating markets in California for recycled materials. So we have 3 bills we're sponsoring on that, and I got the warning about in about a minute and a half, so I'll go through these. One that I think will affect a lot of people and we hope to have a lot of support letters for is the first one up there, which is AB 199 Eggman, which basically allows recyclers, composters, and recycled content manufacturers to not pay sales tax on the equipment they purchase. Again, if you're a MRF, if you're a composter, if you're making tiles out of CRT glass, you could buy equipment and not pay sales tax. We hope that will raise all boats. We tried that bill a couple of years ago. It got hung up in committee, but it had such a broad impact that we want to try again. Then we're doing a couple of bills on manufacturing. One with raising the minimum content for glass and PET packaging that's sold in California, and another tying the state's bottle bill processing fee offset to use of recycled content. Right now it's more or less a free giveaway, so we want people to actually have to work for that money. This is just I was at a couple MRFs in the past week, and seeing the bales of paper that were stacked up because the port shut down really brought home why we need more domestic markets in California for recycled materials. That's 2 separate MRFs and bales and it looks like I'm about to get the hook, but we are doing a bill on tire program reform. The current CalRecycle system, you heard 90% diversion, woohoo, mission accomplished. Out of that 90% diversion, we're only recycling about 35 to 40%. The rest is diverted through landfill uses, through cement kilns where it's burned, shipped overseas where it's burnt, or other uses like that. It's not true diversion, and for the $40 million a year we're paying for it, we can do much better. I'll just touch on the synthetic turf because I know it's a controversial topic. There have been about 50 studies that have looked at the health impacts of synthetic turf. Not a single one has shown any health impacts. And that's, the ones I've looked at, the only one exception I'm aware of is there has been occasionally,
no way.
There has been occasionally lead paint used in the turf blades themselves, which is not an impact of the tires, and that's something that's been addressed for a long time now. I have a little review of all the studies that I can give to anybody who's interested. I won't even go into this, but we want to raise the standards for motor oil so people can change their motor oil less frequently, get the dollar store stuff off the shelves, and really have high quality motor oil that can last for 10,000, 15,000 miles. Cal is going to talk about this, so I'll just gloss over it. But it is the International Year of Soils, and we hope to have some funding for more research on compost benefits. And I'll leave this to Monica, but she did ask me to tee it up. There is a lot of interest right now from the administration in promoting waste energy. It's something we've been concerned about. It's going to be a point of discussion for the next year. And so now we're calling it thermal resource recovery. And that's it. Thank you.
Highlighted in the Nicker News with regards to playground tires. Personally, I don't like to play on it. Questions for Nick? Stand up.
Susan, are you all engaged with the soda warning label, since that might reduce the amount of soda cans?
Very tangentially, we've tracked that, but we haven't really been involved. Pretty much have our hands full with the stuff we're working on.
Over here. My understanding is the state does not actually, state knows how much cardboard is in the garbage. They do not know actually how much cardboard is recycled. That is collected in California, and we have no figures about how much is consumed by the mills in California. And that's true of all of the basic materials. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, we don't track recycling in California. Some other states do. Washington, Oregon does. But we should.
Do you have any idea of how effective those programs are in Oregon and Washington?
They seem to be able to have a mass balance of their waste stream of this much goes here, this much goes here, and it adds up to our total, as opposed to our sort of estimated model system.
Yeah. I think our point has been that California has been deindustrialized from the basic materials standpoint, and the reason all the stuff has to go out of state is because, for a variety of reasons, we closed the paper mills and the scrap yards that smelt the stuff and things like that. I'm trying to get the numbers to back that up. Thank you.
Okay. Last question.
I'm just curious about used motor oil bottles. Because I see thousands and thousands of those in the trash. And is there any effort to like do an EPR thing or something, or to because it's toxic, right? It can't go in the recycling. So.
Yeah, the only effort I've heard of recently is it's actually a waste energy effort, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Other than this might be one of the only situations where it might make sense. And it's a company that takes plastic to crude oil. And generally speaking, I won't comment on the technology as a whole, but the motor oil containers might be one of the only materials where that would actually make sense. And I know they're looking at that, although somebody else can correct me or get their pitchforks ready. But
Thank you.